more than 1.5 million people have fled Ukraine into neighbouring countries since Russia invaded. Those are the figures, according to the United Nations.
Well, our chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, has made the journey to the border with Poland, along the way meeting people who've left everything behind, just so they can get to safety. He joins us live now. Richard, you must feel as if you've stepped into a time machine and it's landed somewhere in Europe in 1940. These are scenes that haven't been seen since those days.
Yeah, it certainly felt like that, standing at the border, people carrying just very small bags, dragging their pets with them, almost all of them women and children, because men aren't allowed to leave the country, Richard. And yeah, desperately sad scenes there, people knowing that they had to leave everything behind, and a lot of people that they wanted to bring with them couldn't come for various reasons. Take a look at just some of what we found on our journey. It seems every car on the road in Ukraine is heading west to the border, thousands sitting in long queues, crawling in hope towards safety. Along the way, we meet Eugenia. She's now heading to Spain, but only because her son studies Spanish at school. Difficult choices are being made by millions under extreme pressure.
I leave the father of my kids, my home, my work, but I'm ready to do it just to save my children.
At the border, families queue in sub-zero conditions for hours on end. It's mostly women and children, sometimes with their pets, because the majority of men are banned from leaving the country. Some help is being offered, but the conditions are harsh. It is freezing here at the Raworuski crossing from Ukraine into Poland. A difficult situation at the best of times, and yet these people stoically standing here carrying the bare minimum of personal belongings. Alexander won't be crossing today. Having brought his family from Kyiv, he'll say goodbye and then turn around to join the fighting.
They will move to Germany and they will be there for, I don't know, half year, 1 year.
They might be leaving their country, but their hearts remain in Ukraine. What do you fear for your city and for your friends that you've left behind?
I'm scared for them, for my family, for my friends, and all of them. And I miss them.
Well, it was a desperate situation there at the border, Susanna and Richard. People having waited maybe 2-3 days to get across. Really trying times for them. No fuel in the petrol stations for about 100 kilometres up to the border, which meant they had to make very difficult decisions about whether to leave the engine running to keep themselves warm as they sat in their cars in sub-zero temperatures.
Richard, I'll just repeat a question that you might not have just heard. What do these people tell you about their feelings about Putin? Because this is clearly one man's war. This is the man who just over 2 weeks ago was saying to the West that they were fantasizing and they were being hysterical when they were concerned about a possible invasion. He said it simply wasn't going to happen, and it has. What do they say to you about him?
Well, they blame him entirely, of course, Richard, for this. They say that he wants to rebuild the Soviet Union, has a desire to creating this empire again. They think he is crazy, they think he is mad, and they would like to see him taken out of the picture. It's very difficult, though, isn't it, for them? They are running now from Russian troops, and a lot of them believe those Russian troops are just following orders that they, a lot of them didn't understand what they were getting themselves into. They thought they were on exercise. At this point, though, all of their thoughts really on what they do next. You heard Eugenia there making a really random decision to go and live in Spain. Now, she spoke perfect English. Sadly, she couldn't come to England because it's not possible with the visa situation at the moment for her. Her son speaks a bit of Spanish from school, so they've decided to go to Spain. Those decisions being made in split seconds often, just running away to get to safety.
And they, of course, have left mostly their men behind to fight. What do they tell you about that?
Yeah, well, we saw Alexander there, who had brought his family from Kyiv. Pretty elongated journey through the country to get to the border. They were explaining just how sad it was that they had to say goodbye to him at that point. really difficult. Eugenia also, that we saw in that little report, leaving her husband behind, knowing that she was taking her children to Spain whilst he stayed in the country, potentially to fight. Really difficult decisions being made by so many people. The men can't leave though. Just one man we found at the border crossing who had been born in Ukraine but carried an American passport, and on that basis was allowed to leave the country.
Richard, are you going to stay in Poland or are you coming home for a while?
A decision's been made to bring us back. I think perhaps I'm the least relieved out of everybody that we've come out. A lot of relief from family, friends and colleagues. There's an awful lot more to do there, Richard, and I think potentially we will go back in. It is a very dangerous place at the moment. I think a lot of media organisations looking at the situation, reassessing the safety of their employees in that particular theatre of war, and it's very difficult to know what's happening next. I mean, I've been thinking about some of the places we visited just before the invasion. We went to Irpin, which is now being devastated, and we went there to meet a chap called Ken Stewart, an expat. Luckily, he and his wife and children managed to get out, but his wife's family haven't, and they are now really in danger living in that area. We also went to Chernihiv, just to the north, up at the Belarus border. Really fierce fighting there. Impossible to think that the day before the invasion, when we were in Chernihiv, that place was absolutely quiet, peaceful. People didn't believe it was going to happen. Now the city's being devastated as the Ukrainians fight to hold on to it. On the route that we took out, just to the south of Kyiv, that's where Eugenia came from. Again, residential areas being pummeled, and there's no military reason for any of this. It just seems that the Russians are trying to break.
I'm afraid we've lost you there.
They're going to have.
Oh. All right, Richard, I'm afraid the signal's just breaking up there, but I was just going to say, we're out of time now anyway, that I guess these are days that you and people like you will never forget. They'll be with you for the rest of your life. Well, look,
Richard, I'm just going to say, Richard's the first person who would not make this all about him.
Huh.
But I wanted to just pass on, and I hope you can hear us, Richard, that there is huge amount of support for you, obviously, here in the studio and amongst your colleagues, but also from viewers. It isn't about individual reporters, but it is down to individual reporters that we are able to hear the truth from the ground in Ukraine. We've seen what is happening in Russia. We've seen the crackdown on independent media, the fact that Russian reporters operating in Russia cannot say that this is even a war. You know, sort of Orwellian-style rules coming into play in Russia. We know how important the risks that you've taken there in Ukraine. We saw what happened to your Sky News colleague, Stuart Ramsey, and his incredibly courageous crew. They came under fire from Russian troops. It is a very risky, dangerous environment. We all appreciate what you've done. And as I said, we are inundated with people saying thank you for the courage of your reporting. So, Richard, it's good to see you in Krakow. And
thank you.
Thank you very much indeed to you and your producer, Rav, and all the team that are working with you.
Hear, hear.